Roger raised his hand, Dave.
Go for it, Roger.
Okay, I just wanted to say it was, I really enjoyed, I worked most of my volunteering time and it was with Sarah, and it is good to see her again. I just wanted to second your thoughts and what she said. Good to see you, Sarah, about the ministry that the store provided for us who were volunteers and the customers who went in there when she was the minister. I really enjoyed that and will miss that. And there were other volunteers we got to know as well in there, like Janann, who came in after me, and then also Dorothy was a pleasure when we came in as customers at other times to feel welcome. And so I too enjoyed the experience, and a special place, and hopefully we can do something else in the future to fill some of that gap. So thank you for the experience.
Roger, you're
both
welcome.
as a customer and as a volunteer.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, every time I went in there, Roger, I would say, I'm not going to spend money. I'm not going to spend money. And then I would fail every time because there would be some book that caught my eye, or a candle or whatever it was. I'm like, I have to get it. I have to get it. So-and-so would love that. Thank you, Roger, for sharing that. I think Betty was going to share before, Betty Kummer. And Betty, I don't think you're muted.
No, am I muted?
No, we can hear you, but it's a little bit faint. If you could get closer to the computer, or.
Oh, okay. Well, is it better now?
It's, yes.
It's still better. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, and I missed the people, but and it was a wonderful community effort, and it was just a great experience. So.
Thank you so much, Betty. Oh, I see Jan Williams raising her hand. Go for it, Jan.
Well, I just didn't work there very long. I worked there in the newest version of the bookstore, but I just want to say thank you to Gina for teaching me how to use a computer. In the beginning, I did text her about 80 times one day, I think. And I too, I loved talking to the people who came in, people I'd never met before. People came in who were looking for a particular type of Bible or book or gift. And pretty much they could always find something that fit their need. And so Gina did a great job in ordering the items for that. But I too was one of the best shoppers. Once I figured out how to work that computer and that scanner, and the credit card machine, it was great. I just thought of birthdays and, baptisms and gifts for friends, and it was great. So.
Thanks, Jan. Yes, technology can be a blessing, can also be a challenge. I think I see Mary waving her hand over there. Mary, would you please share?
Well, it was a great experience for me because as an 8 o'clock person, I knew all the 8 o'clock people, but I never knew any of the 9 o'clock or the 11:15 people. And so I got to meet a lot of people. Plus you had a great experience with the customers. I'm not the most social person in a way, but I became much more social because of the bookstore. And I miss Sarah and I miss Gina. I worked with both of them and I really, really enjoyed myself. And I was a great shopper there. I could not leave that store without buying something every time I worked.
Mary, thanks for sharing that. It's true. Like when you're in a retail environment, I've been blessed to work in several retail shops. There's this kind of unforced way that you can just talk with people. It's a natural setting. People are at ease. They're there for some purpose, but you can just get into conversations with people kind of naturally and easily. And I love that part about retail. And like you, I'm on the quieter side. I call myself a high functioning introvert, a high functioning introvert. I can be the extrovert when I need to be, but I am more introverted. So the store provides a place where you can kind of have those natural conversations with folks. Anyone else would like to share?
I just want to thank all the volunteers who helped with all the changes and transitions. I mean, they worked really hard, and it was great getting to know them and connecting. And like Mary said, I mean, I met people who, like Mary, who came to the 8 o'clock service that I probably would never have met or gotten to know as well as I did. And that's just one of the blessings of the bookstore, having those connections. But all the volunteers were really the workers behind everything that happened. I think, at least with all the things that I was doing and changing, and it was just a blessing to have them and get to know them. And I'm sorry that we kind of ended like this abrupt end, unfortunately, without, I feel like we were there one day, just like everything else, and then poof. So I'm sorry for that, with the volunteers, because we were just kind of plugging along, and but I just want to thank them for their commitment and their work and their willingness to participate, and willingness to be there anytime.
Gina, thank you for spotlighting the volunteers, because if you think about places like the Lively Cafe, the bookstore, while there definitely are staff there, it's really the backbone, as you said, of the ministry are people offering up their time and their talents. And that is something that makes, really distinguishes St. John's. When we're looking at, for example, like Carol's mom, who lives up in New Jersey, she's a member of a wonderful church, but there aren't these types of volunteer opportunities that we have at St. John's, at places like the bookstore or the cafe, or pick 20 or 30 other ministries where folks can jump in. It is the volunteers who truly are the backbone. I think David Wheeler was hoping to share.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who the bookstore played a role in my coming to St. John's. I was at my previous church, and I think it was sometime in the late spring or early summer of 2011. I was downtown for some reason and saw the bookstore. I'd seen it many times and had some time on my hands, and I ducked in. And when I walked in, I recognized right away some Taizé music playing through the sound system. And I asked the volunteer about it, and I said, "Do you have that disc?" Yes, we do. So I bought the disc. And I looked around, and I bought some gifts. I had a friend whose birthday was coming up, and I bought a couple more things. And I engaged. I can't tell you now who the volunteer was. I don't remember. I just had a great conversation with her, and I was looking to get out of the church that I was in and looking to go somewhere else. And I said, has St. John's finally called do you have a permanent rector now? She said, "Oh, yes, and he's wonderful." So you had a fan there, Dave. And I said, "Is the music still as good as ever? I mean, traditional church music?" And, "Oh, yes, Betsy does a wonderful job, the choir and the organ." And I said, "Boy, that sounds good to me." And so I related that conversation with Mary Messer, who's now Mary Bryan, with whom I worked at the time. And she reinforced everything that this volunteer had said. And I said, "Well, then that does it. Next Sunday, I'm at St. John's." And Mary said, "Oh, and make sure you come at 10 o'clock because we're on the summer schedule now." And that next Sunday, there I was, and oh, the music, and oh, the preaching, and oh, the environment, and oh, I found home. So the bookstore did play a role in my in my coming to St. John's when I did.
David, so grateful for you sharing that story. And, you know, I mentioned that during Sarah's tenure, we saw a lot of people find their way to the church to become members. And you could say that the bookstore is kind of like the front porch before you get into the house. It's a place where you can have a cup of tea, have a conversation, and feel a sense of belonging. And then when you're ready, you jump in, and you go into the party and into the church. That's a beautiful story. I want to go through some of the chat items here. Alvin says, I'm really going to miss going to the bookstore after the service. Amen. Someone's wondering, well, where are we going to get Christian material now? Good question. But we will, as Mandy says, keep you informed. Another person shares, the most recent bookstore was a welcoming retreat for me, a welcoming retreat. I would collect several books and sit in one of the cozy chairs and have such a sense of peace and spiritual expansion, a real refuge in the center of downtown. Thank you so much. Mary Irvine wants to give a shout out to Claire Dodd for her help with the computer. And let's see here. Dorothy, Alvin wants to also thank Dorothy for encouraging words. Just what he needed to hear at that time. Anyone else would like to share? Volunteers, managers? I see Kathy Hall waving. Kathy? Unmute, Kathy.
Okay, better now?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Gosh, I haven't been called ma'am in a long time. I'll sit up straighter. A couple of things. One of them was when I first walked in there, and there were those comfy chairs in that side room. I'm kind of a hobbit, and nothing's better than a cup of tea, comfy chairs, and a good book. You know, I just thought, this is my place. And then when I taught part-time at John Paul II Catholic High School, I had AP seniors that were graduating that I had. I did it for 4 years. I had for 10th grade on, and I wanted to buy them something, but I wanted it to be meaningful, and it needed to be small. And the bookstore was the perfect place for that, to get them something small that was meaningful, and one of the devotional cards to go with it, to kind of send them off. And they really appreciated it, and it felt so good to be giving something that had some depth, that showed that I cared about them. And the last thing is when COVID had gone on for just a couple of weeks and things were closed down, I mentioned to Rick, I said, I miss my shopping buddies. And those are the people that work in the stores that you get to know. And I felt that way about St. John's. It was just nice to go in and say hi. And Rita Kelsey, who goes to Faith, she's a friend of mine, and I hadn't seen her in a while. And, she would be there sometimes too. So it's just such a wonderful place to go to.
Amen, Kathy. I'm looking here on the chat, and Peggy shares that our Christmas nativity set came from the bookstore years ago, and I still love it more than any others I've seen. And other people are joining in on that, saying, yeah, me too. I got that too. I think Sally Roberts was hoping to share. Sally, there you go,
Let me
Sally.
unmute. Yeah, I had to unmute. And I did write something in this chat because I didn't know whether I'd get a chance to. But the bookstore, I came back. I was at St. John's as a child, but I came back about 9 or 10 years ago now. And the bookstore has been such a part of my life at St. John's. The gifts were so special, and the feel of the store was so special. And I just felt like I could get things that I just couldn't get elsewhere. And the wrapping was so beautiful. I mean, when my extended family always loved when I, which I did most of the time, bought gifts there for them. And, the wrapping was just so special and so beautiful. It just lifted their spirits before they even got to the very special gift inside. So I just really want to thank all the volunteers and all the managers and all the other customers that I met in there, because it really was, part of my life at St. John's, and I've missed it terribly since the pandemic. And I hope the new normal, like someone else says, has something that nourishes our souls as much as that bookstore did, because I just loved it. It was just such a part of St. John's and me.
It's beautiful, Sally. I appreciate you sharing that. I can remember, and Sarah and Gina and others, and Betty might remember this, but I keep a little list on my phone of books that catch my eye when I see them reviewed, or I see them, in a newspaper or something. And then I would come in about every 6 months, and I would just have this long printout. I'd say, okay, order away. And I would get, 20, 30 books at a clip. I can't tell you, it was like a little kid, going into a candy store when I would pick up all of those books, or Sarah would bring them over, or whoever would bring them over. It was just such a gift. Another thing that I would very often buy at the bookstore are the olive wood palm crosses, the little clutch crosses that comes from the Holy Land. And I would bring those to people in the hospital, or people who were going through a difficult moment in their life, to be able to give something tangible to someone going through a difficult time was so, so important. I'm looking at Dennis, a comment that Dennis Howard, a vestry member, makes. Dennis says, gas station, travel planning, bookstore. I see a thread of continuity, a place where people could come to restore, dream, and explore. Right on, Dennis. Judy shares, Sarah and Betty introduced me to the unique and beautiful Pathway art cards. I'm still searching for additional ones. Good luck, Judy. I hope you can find those. Mary talks about some of the dish towels she got there. She loved them. There's others who are commenting on the wrapping. In most places you have to pay to get gifts wrapped, but at St. John's you got a beautiful gift wrapping, complimentary. What a gift. Anyone else wanting to share? We're going to talk a little. I see Joanne. Go ahead, Joanne.
Probably echoing a lot of what has already been said, but I have really fond memories of most of these managers. I remember going in and meeting Betty, I think, first, and she helped me order some beautiful children's books. And Sarah, I remember going in and gift wrapping, I bought a gift and she said, would you like us to wrap that? And I was like, well, yeah, because I'm like the world's worst gift wrapper. And this thing was beautiful. I just could not believe it. That was like a gift in itself. And the cards, it was, I would be in an EFM class. So every Thursday morning, I'd probably stop in and you could always find a card or a little gift. Like somebody said, it didn't have to be an expensive gift, but they were always such precious gifts, to give to people. So I wanted to I think Sarah and Leslie and Gina and Betty, I think were the managers when I started coming, and all the volunteers. It was one place where I knew when I went in there that I was either going to see an old friend like Dorothy Romanek or make a new friend, like whoever happened to be in the store that day. So thank you so much to all of you.
Beautiful, Joanne. Mary. Unmute, Mary.
Actually, I've got to say something about the gift wrapping. I am the world's worst gift wrapper. But Sarah would take it over. I would take the sale and Sarah would wrap them for me. But she also taught me how to do it with little bags and little things like that. And I was so happy because now I can do that and I don't have to actually wrap a gift. And Joanne was one of our best customers, as I remember, on Thursday mornings. I was there.
So it was also a place to acquire new skills, whether it was computers or gift wrapping. Virginia, I think I see Virginia raising her hand.
Okay, I think you can get those pathway cards at Tallahassee Nursery. Check and see in the gift shop.
Judy, there's hope. You can. Mr. Breedy, go for it, buddy. You have to unmute. There you go.
I was going to say I had an experience there meeting with Joe, and as my spiritual leader, and because we're involved in Cursillo, and of course you're supposed to meet with your Cursillo or with your spiritual leader every so often, and the most touching part of that whole thing was that at the end of our meeting, he said, "Come with me." And we walked over to the bookstore, and he bought me a prayer book, and it was a leather-bound prayer book. It was the Hour by Hour, and I was just absolutely blown away. And then when reading it, realized it was such a gift that I turned around and bought one for another person for our Easter situation. So I have to say it was a very moving point for me in my spiritual journey.
So Jim, and what I hear you sharing is that generosity is like a currency, and that when we receive generosity, the next thing we want to do is give it away, and we want to share it with others. What a beautiful, beautiful image that you've given us there. And that was Deacon Joe, or?
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful.
It was love. It was just, I mean, that was, to me, it was an expression of love. And of course, that's what I think that Christianity is all about, you know.
Amen. And, you know, as you were sharing, I said to myself, where in God's good name are we going to get those books engraved like we used to? This is a crisis. We're going to have to figure this out. No one does that anymore, where you get that gold stamping on the front. We're going to have to find a source. I want to look over at the chat screen here. Actually, this is probably a good moment for us to shift gears a little bit and talk about what's next. And someone asks, what will happen to the remaining books and gifts? That's a great question. Well, I want you to know that Mother Abby, along with Lynn Solomon, our junior warden, are leading up a team that includes several past volunteers as well as some other folks to discern what's next for that space. And one of the things that they're looking at right now, one of the first questions is, what are we going to do with the inventory? And the answer is, when it's safe, there will be a sale of the merchandise at the bookstore, and that team is looking about the safest way to do that in this time in which we're living. So there will be an opportunity, we hope in the near future, for you to purchase at a discount the inventory that's currently in the book and gift store. And once we figure out what we're doing with the inventory, then the next question will be, well, how are we going to utilize this physical space, this building, for the spread of God's kingdom? And so we don't have an answer to that yet, but there is a team that is beginning to ask for God's guidance about what we're going to do there and to give the vestry some options. So I just want you to know that folks are dreaming and praying and asking God for the best way we might use that space. But to Dennis's point, what's been pretty clear through the decades is that this is a space where people have felt welcome, a place where they could recharge, a place where they could explore, a place where they could be nurtured and fed. So my guess is that whatever goes on in that bookstore space in the future will be along those lines. So we'll see. We'll see what God has in store for that space. Are there any last sharings before we close today? Dennis Howard.
Yeah, Dave. I wondered if you could advise us if we wanted to provide some suggestions about the future of the bookstore, who we might send an email to or give a call.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that Mother Abby and Lynn Solomon would be your two best contact people.
Okay, thank you.
They're leading that team. Well, once again, I want to thank our managers who joined us. And in particular, I want to thank Gina again, because normally I told her we'd be able to thank her at a staff meeting and in church. We weren't able to do that this time, but Gina, we're so grateful that you joined us this morning, along with our other managers, the many volunteers, and the many guests. And I think almost everyone on this meeting today has been in there to buy resources at the bookstore. So thank you for a job well done. And we thank God that we know that God will lead us to how we can best use this space for the future. I hope you all have a wonderful day, wonderful week ahead. And don't forget that at the end of the month, I want to just circle this date for you again. It's going to be a wonderful celebration on Sunday, August 30th. At 4 o'clock, we're going to have a special service to celebrate Dr. Betsy Calhoun's 30 years of ministry at St. John's. It's going to be amazing. So join us for that. And I just got word. Did Leslie Johnson have a chance to join us? I don't think so. I was going to give Leslie a chance to share as a former manager, but I don't think she was able to join us this morning. So I pray that you all will have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful week ahead. God bless you. Take care, everyone. Yes, please clap. Job well done. Virtual clap. Bless you all.